My name is Matt. Follow along as I turn Duracell, the legendary ocean racing sailboat, into a comfortable cruising home. One of the next projects is to install the overhead that extends forward of the doghouse. You'll remember that we did the overhead in the doghouse a few months ago. Today, my mom is here and we're going to start putting in the mounting strips that are going to be underneath the headliner pieces. And hopefully we'll get to even templating out those pieces. Tomorrow, we're going to be cutting the vanes, which are the strips in the pattern. And actually I'm going to use the CNC at Brandon's place to do that instead of cutting it my own. So yeah, it'll be a very satisfying project to get these unfinished overhead looking nicer.
The purpose of these wood strips is to separate the panel from the overhead to allow room to install lights and give a more uniform mounting surface for the panels. They were epoxied up so all the paint had to be removed underneath them for good bonding. And they were coated with epoxy for better adhesion of the Velcro sticky back. It took my mom and I all day to get all these glued up and coated before I could move on to templating.
You go A, B, we'll do C and D. All arrows point forward. We're back here at Brandon's shop, Turnpoint Design, and instead of me cutting the vanes into the plywood for the overhead panels, he's going to use a CNC machine, which is going to be a lot more accurate.
Every time I spend time at Turnpoint with Brandon, we get into these long and in-depth conversations about boat building and sailing. He's got vast experience and amazing ideas for how I can approach projects that I'm thinking about. It's an aspect of doing this project in Port Townsend that is undervalued. The willingness to share ideas and help each other out makes this community special.
This may end up being the futziest project I will do on this boat. You saw that my mom and I installed all these little stringers, these battens that are that will be the standoffs for the overhead liners. And now what I'm doing is templating the shape of each headliner panel. And these shapes are very strange. I'm having to deal with the kind of the outboard curves of not the outboard curves, but the shape changes as it moves towards the deck. And so it's going to be a really difficult project. I want it to look really, really nice, obviously. And so I'm going to really take my time to make these shapes and hope for the best, basically, that I can make these look good.
There will be a hole cut out for the hatch in the future, once I figure out how to trim the edge. This style of overhead panel, or liner as some would call it, was not the only option. I could have just sanded and faired and painted the overhead, but it's a lot of work. Plus, it's harder to hide wiring for lights with just a painted surface. Not that this won't be a lot of work. The other option is a panel that is covered by a foam-backed vinyl. This is popular in a lot of production boats and has its value. One nice thing about the vinyl is that it does better to hide the imperfections around the perimeter. My panels are not cut perfectly, and there are small gaps where vinyl could hide those, and it's a lot less work. But we like the texture and farmhouse feel of the veined panel look.
So I've been templating and cutting out these pieces for the past 3 days. And now that they're all fit, we're actually really surprised at how good it looks. We knew it was gonna look cool, but we didn't think it would look this cool. The plan in the past has been that we were going to paint these white like we did in the doghouse, which contrasts the deck beams in the doghouse. But up here, the deck beams are white. We're thinking that we're going to just varnish these. What they are is marine grade Meranti plywood. We're kind of thinking that if we just varnish them, they would look fantastic as they are. So that's the next project, is to get them coated and protected. There's going to be epoxy on the B side of them, and then we're going to do some really nice varnishing on the A side. The other thing that has to get done is trim. So I can't leave this kind of exposed edge. And so there's going to be a really nice trim piece that goes around this, all the way around this kind of brow, I guess you could call it, on the underside of the deck. We're all pretty excited about how this is going to look when it's all done. So this is what I'm using to hold up these panels. I call it Velcro, but it's actually called dual lock. It's like a snap together style of Velcro. The advantage of this stuff is it has more holding power and it never wears out, or like after a really many pull aparts, which we'll never pull these apart. And so it's, the only problem with this stuff is it's expensive. And so I used it sparingly, but it's holding the panels up really nicely. And it's got this really tough, sticky back adhesive on it. It's like a VHB tape that will stick forever.
Before putting a layer of epoxy on the underside, I had to do a quick sand to remove the fuzzies in the wood. I did one epoxy coat and let it cure. The next day I scuffed it up and did another coat so it's a nice smooth finish. In addition to protecting the underside of the panels, the epoxy surface is better for the sticky back on the Velcro to adhere to than unfinished wood.
Okay, done with the second coat. I've spent the last day making some trim, and this is something I have very little experience doing, so it's taking me a while to learn how to do it. But we're gonna glue up this next piece, see how it goes. So I'm using, it's Meranti mahogany for all of the trim in the boat. These are going to be the first pieces of trim. Hopefully these are going to actually be the most difficult pieces of trim to make because there's curves, and I'm matching up with the beadboard. So it's a good starting, like get the hardest project out of the way as far as getting the trim done. But yeah, so like I said, it'll all be Meranti. I'm trying to make it all very minimal and kind of flush with things so that there's no extra bits and bobs sticking out. But yeah, I'll get these 3 pieces done and it'll be a nice kind of start to the trim project, which I'm not planning on doing for a long time. I just wanted to get these done because the overhead panels will look so much nicer with these trim pieces on.
After another few hours, I got the trim glued in. These overhead panels are not quite done. I'm actually going to put about 10 coats of varnish on them to both protect the wood and to bring out more of their natural beauty.